Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is the third in the fall semester's Holloway poetry readings. There's one more before the end of the semester, and that will be on November 29, when Bob Perlman will be here to read with Mia Yu. Again, that will be at 6:30 on Wednesday, November 29. So please come again to that reading. And as always, there's information about the readings on our website, which is holloway.english.berkeley.edu. We have a tracker, I think it's called, on the website. And we have been receiving hits from Brazil, Bucharest. One particular IP address keeps looking at the same poet over and over again. All kinds of interesting things are going on at our website, so you too can be tracked. Just go there and we will know that someone in Berkeley has been visiting the website, which will be a good thing. After the reading is over, if Heriberto has the energy and agrees, there'll be a brief Q&A, and then there'll be a drawing for a free book, thanks to the ASUC bookstore. Hillary Gravendike Burrell and I both once again thank the ASUC bookstore for taking the trouble to bring books here for sale and to let us have one for free. Tonight's reading features two poets for whom English is a second as well as a literary language. Heriberto Yepez, who's from Tijuana, will read second tonight, and he will be introduced by Jennifer Reimer, a poet who is currently a graduate student in the Ethnic Studies Department here at UC Berkeley. Dimiter Kenarov will read first. Dimiter is in his first year as a graduate student in the English department here at Berkeley. He did his undergraduate studies in the United States, but his home is in Bulgaria, and he writes in both Bulgarian and in English. In 2001, his first published book of poetry, written in Bulgarian, received the Bulgarian National Yuzna Prolet Literaturen Vestnik Award for the best first book by a young writer. His English-language poetry has appeared in a variety of U.S. literary journals, including the New England Review, the Virginia Quarterly Review, and the Gettysburg Review. Dimiter Kenarov is also a translator, most recently of the selected poems of Elizabeth Bishop. As a poet himself, Dimiter has an amazing eye for salient details, salient and ambient. Details are more than decor or decorations on the surfaces of reality. Details that in and of themselves bring ours into existence, providing them with substance. In this sense, he is very much a painterly poet. He is a genius at rendering light and thus time. Details in Dimiter's work are emitted not only from natural time, they are also manifestations of cultural time. They speak not only of the way things are, but of the way things are said to be. He plays with iconography, or, as in his remarkably touching, though also very funny poem titled Lassie in Eastern Europe, he admits that iconography has played with him. You will hear in his work the play of detail and the light of time. What you may not hear, because the language moves so easily across the poetry's line and stanza breaks, is the meticulous architecture of the poems. Their sonic fluidity may prevent you from discerning the angles, joints, hinges that make of each poem a usable, even habitable space. Given that I'm so fascinated by the play of light in the poems, I'm tempted to make an analogy between the function of the sonic fluidity of the poems and the flow of light into, say, a barn, light that is given shape and direction by architectural geometry, and thus becomes itself a constructive force. The structure, say a barn, structures the light that then constitutes and defines the space it's illuminating. Dimiter's poems are beautiful. They are also complex. Melancholy and anticipation, a skeptic's ironic wit, and an optimist's sense of fun have equal force in the poems, and so do the two very different cultural terrains that are home to Dimiter Kenarov. It is no exaggeration to say that we are honored that he decided to do his graduate work at UC Berkeley, and I am enormously pleased that he has agreed to read in tonight's Holloway event. Please welcome Dimiter Kenarov.
Hello. First, I want to thank Lynn for the wonderful introduction. And I want to thank also the first-year cohort for being here. I'm going to read several poems. I'm just going to start with kind of an old one and then move to some newer ones. But anyway, this one is called Foxes. I could be dressed in a fur coat and they'll still love me. Brush against my leg, sniff at my leather shoes unabashedly, romp in a circle until the sky dims and the grasses are limp. Little sunsets, I call them, suns of sadness. When I hold up a flashlight to their eyes, or meet them with my car beams, or even open my mouth to pronounce light, beats of sepia scattered through the field, not an echo merely, but fire and heart amplified, luminous silence. Have they ever lived in a zoo, performed in a circus? What habit compels them to follow me, a human being walking upright like a loaded shotgun, with my features betraying British ancestry? Is love the ability to ignore history? Could I leave my home late at night? I'd elope with them to a primal burrow where the sea sways and the earth frays and the damp soil blends with their scent, and my hands, our separateness, pry the last traps of the mind open. This one is called Time Farmers. Come spring, they plant cogs by the dozen in the broken ground and wind up patience. Then, just in case, someone puts up a scarecrow to stand guard at the edge of the farm, or maybe to serve as a sundial with two hands. Time farmers. Unsubsidized by the government, untouched by technology, they use only the most primitive tools. A pendulum and an endless string to sway over the heads of the tick-tocking kettle. Instead of grain, they stack up hours in the barn, and later grind them down to fine seconds before bread rises in the oven, just in time for supper. Such simple life, gathering to spend until a drought comes around, or a flood, and the cocks fail. Only hunger is left to cuckoo like an absent grandfather's clock. Okay, my next one, this one is kind of oldish too. It's kind of like, I wrote it about 3 years ago, and it's about stars. It's just several sections, little short ones. And it's called Stars. 1. Moonlit, the graveyard of metaphors glitters. Light of long ago arriving today. So much death to tread on. The tombstones bright, fiery, red. 2. No pay for the workmen. They were drunk again last night. A million nails used to repair a leaking roof, all of them wedged in the wrong spot. 3. God's discotheque. The nightclub of his youth is still the hot spot in town. Everybody drops by at least once a week and smokes pot in the bathroom. 4. They were the fourth thing on his list. Important but not indispensable. Sesame seeds for the main dish, a tinge of flavor for the connoisseur. 5. August. The great gambler has won again, coins clinking in the aluminum basin of morning as he spreads his palm, as he empties the slot machine. 6. Albino flies sucking on blackberry jam. Granny raises her yellow fly sweater and quietly orders fire. By morning, pools of blue blood stain the kitchen table. 7. Late at night, the aliens return home, fatigued after work and a 2-hour drive from Venus to Mars. They turn on the lights, grab a beer, and fall asleep on the couch. 8. Sky's refrigerators sealed shut. Ivory pieces of magnetic poetry jumbled on its black iron door. Who will rearrange the words, the meter, the rhyme? 9. Billions, like sperm cells, drift in the night sky. Maybe it's better to keep condoms in your wallet. This universe is a dangerous place, full of pleasures. Okay, the next poem I'm going to read is I'm going to read it just because probably this is the only audience that would find the poem vaguely interesting. Strange Meeting has some stuff about Wilfred Owen, the war poet. Strange Meeting. Leaning on his cane, he recounted the story of the Great War. Between freshmen and sophomores at UC Berkeley, a time of carnage, hysteria, trench confessions, before the president, Benjamin Ida Wheeler, brokered the peace in 1905. Requiem in Pace. He was not Wilfred Owen, though he stuttered a little like a rifle and wore a peaked cap and was about Owen's age, had Owen lived through the Great War. He was the retired dean of students, perhaps, who had once written the prospective student catalog, but was now taking a walk up the Berkeley hills as the sun went down into the San Francisco Bay to watch, in his old age, the sky's edifying sfumato, the city's electrifying transcendentalism. Nonsense, he scoffed. I like the 18th century, the Enlightenment, Mozart. He tapped with his cane. Strange friend, he said, seeing my dead smile. Here is no cause to mourn. Okay, I'm going to skip the next one. How am I doing with the time? Okay, it's fine. Okay, I'll read one more San Francisco poem, which I wrote like a couple of days ago. Surfers under the Golden Gate Bridge, and there are surfers there. My feeling is this must be an advertisement for some tourist agency or MTV or a new waterproof perfume teenagers will be killing for in a couple of months if the publicity campaign does not flop in the meantime and no terrorists resolve to blow up San Francisco after seeing a pirated version of The Rock starring Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage in some Egyptian joint. This is an advertisement. I'm almost certain now, as I watch the surfers shiver like flotsam in the dark, icy waters, wreckage from the 60s waiting for the perfect wave. At the exact same spot, Kim Novak tried to drown herself in Hitchcock's Vertigo. This one is called Love Always Comes Back. It's about the Berkeley Pier. Huh? The pier breaks under our weight like a camel's back, a butterfly effect, and we fall through, straw-light, metamorphosed into the ocean's depths, fall like loose change into a wishing well, wishing each other. We are fish now, no doubt, even if mute. We recognize the pleasant compulsion to swim, breathe in the water, even as our bodies refuse to forget the land-bound habit of walking. We walk in the water, thin and thin, infinitely far, beyond shards of pottery, beer bottles, which mark the way back, points of no return and no forgetting. Then let the net catch us. Let them gut what's left of us. They'll find only loose change, straw, stuff to throw back into the ocean. That's not me, huh? I don't know. I mean, the cell phone. It was my poem. And then I'd like to finish with two poems. They're about my grandmother. My grandmother was a mayor of her village. And then, she was accused of being a communist and so on, but she had no communist leanings whatsoever. She was just trying to do her job there. But I just wrote two poems about her, and so I'm gonna finish with those. Mayor of her village for 20 years, my grandmother read eulogies at every funeral, last words for her dead constituents. It was her duty to campaign and sway the living to cast their ballots of grief. Nobody objected. Up on the balding hill, where headstones grew denser with time, intermingled with red pentagonal stars marking the graves of the partisans, she stood bespectacled, unbureaucratic, elegies diligently inscribed in her yellow legal pad. Like wine poured over the pallid funeral shroud, like sweets in lieu of the boiled barley and dry bread handed out to the mourners after the burial, her tongue embalmed the unhinged mind, palmed its apathy, restored the workings of good government. Although upholding the official party line, she never once mentioned the name of God. Even so, neighbors would stop by her house to request that she write their eulogy, hopefully something vast and beautiful. She did afterwards fulfill her promise, the communist priestess who placed the church bell on a scaffold of steel in the village square when the state of affairs changed, if only to signal the death of her mandate. And the last one is called the Woodstove. Now that her kids have grown up and her husband has had his 3-course meal, she's left with nothing to do but feed wood to the wood stove. She feels calm when the flame rumbles its bellyful and spreads its calorific smile in the room, grateful as few things in her life. Sometimes she feels the maternal urge to cradle the stove in her lap, unpin her blouse, and watch the searing mouth suckle her breast with iron appetite. But sometimes the stove swims in her mind like a dead fetus strangled by the umbilical cord of the pipe, blood slowly thinning out to smoke, cinder, and soot. She is terrified. She cannot explain why she cries at night on her camphor pillows as the rain outside breaks its waters upon the winter ground and releases a horrible pleasure. Whizzing on the other bed, her husband tries to blow the ember of his heart back to life. She helps him, if only because he once burned inside of her. When she wakes up tomorrow after a fitful sleep, she'll open the little door at the bottom of the stove and deliver its litter of ashes. Then she'll go to the shed to get some kindling and a new box of matches. Thank you.
In an address at UC Santa Cruz in April of 2004, Heriberto Yepez said, "I can only call poetry the most critical voice against every order, including its own. To enter into the kinetic world of Yepez's work means dwelling in the charged contradictions of order and expectation. It means saying adios to the trendy metaphors of happy hybridism that have become hallmarks of POMO theories and studies of the US-Mexico borderlands. Yepez does not deny La Frontera its transformative identity, but he demands that we let go of the desire to formulate the border and border arts as the pretty synthesis of two pretty but always inherently unequal cultures. Yepez says adios to Hegel's dialectic and embraces new metaphors of fission, where multiple cultures crash into each other and result in demonic, diabolic, cyborgian, and truly transformative art. Yepez works through a constellation of mediums: poetry, fiction, criticism, theory, psychoanalysis, installation art, and electronic forms like blogging. Despite his multiple identities, Yepez always returns to the city as the most important and unavoidable space for staging his theory praxis. Yepez uses the everyday architecture of city streets, sidewalks, and billboards as pages on which to demonstrate the fundamental culpability of art. Poetry is not innocent. Readers of poetry are not innocent. Poetry always corrupts and is being corrupted by the landscape. In particular, Yepez locates his work in the explosive landscape of Tijuana. Tijuana as simulacrum of itself, created and reinforced by various groups. North American big businesses, gringo tourists, los chicanas y las chicanas, y también los mexicanos de todas partes, become a vital metaphor for Yepez. Yet, as his art, installation, and collaborative projects demonstrate, Tijuana is not just a literary device for exploring La Frontera post-NAFTA, post-9/11, post-Operation Gatekeeper. Neither is it only a psychic space for monstrous representations, but a physical, geographic location whose history of colonization by the Spanish and the United States, and whose economic reality as a maquila town, dump, and hedonistic alternative reality for North Americans is always already influencing how we imagine Tijuana. Yepez belongs to a new tradition of trans-American artists and thinkers. His attention to the US-Mexico border refuses to let us forget that the border exists, both as a troubling reality of inequality and as a magnetically charged space of production. Yepez's work suggests that we radically revision what it means to make or write art in a time of crisis. We cannot attempt to imagine a national literature or poetry without accounting for the border. La Frontera reflects itself formally in Yepez's work. He has inherited an avant-garde aesthetic, both from the Latin American modernists like Borges, but especially from the North American avant-garde of Stein, Rothenberg, Heginian, and Gomez Peña. Like Tijuana herself, Yepez constantly calls our attention to the gross contradictions, the absurd and constructed elements in his own writing. The reader has a special but always destabilized role as both an observer and a participant in the often wacky, hilarious, and out-there-ness of Yepez, which is precisely where he wants us to be, self-conscious of his own self-consciousness. This is the position of counter-conquest, of anti-translation, of the glocal. As an ethno-poet, Yepez also articulates a radical revisioning of the growing genre of ethno-poetics. His work reminds us of the risks of building a hegemonic literary culture, a tool for the homogenization and globalization of cultural and poetic resistance. Experimentation of language combinations, such as Spanglish, resist the colonizing temptations of traditional translation, as do explorations of orality, the pictorial, and forms of non-page writing. Ultimately, ethnopoetics, Yepez argues, means ethno as the permanent prefix of every poetics. Heriberto Yepez was born on the US-Mexico border. He studied philosophy and psychoanalysis and currently teaches philosophy at the Autonomous University of Baja California. He's the author of several collections of essays and novellas in Spanish. He's written numerous essays in English, which have appeared in journals such as Chain, Tripwire, Shark, and XCP. In addition, Yepez has participated in art installation festivals and has most recently collaborated with anthropologist Fiamma Montezemolo and architect René Peralta in Here is Tijuana, a further exploration of the sociocultural forms of the city. He blogs in English and Spanish on the internet. Me da mucho gusto presentar a ustedes Heriberto Yepez.
Thank you for that presentation, which is really exaggerated. It sounds like I'm doing something important, or it's not the case. It's never the case. I started to write in English around 2001. Before that, I participated in readings, bilingual readings, on the American side of the border. And after a couple of those experiences, I realized nobody was understanding what I was reading. I read, and then the translator read, and it was pretty obvious that most of the people didn't understand Spanish, which is perfectly okay, because I don't understand Spanish either. So. But then I decided to write directly into English to build a real dialogue, because I felt as an object of a horrible scene of small exotism, you know, People always comment after you're reading Spanish. I can understand why. Like Spanish is so romantic. Spanish it sounded so nice. It's not true. Spanish is mostly cruel and mostly, nasty. Like English, Both languages are basically lying all the time. So I decided to use English to start writing better English. I'm gonna start reading some early stuff, not so early, but and then this is a piece. I like to write on fake technologies. I'm right now writing in Spanish a novel on fake technologies also. And I started to explore this issue, I think, in this poem or piece or whatever it is. And then I'm going to put a video, which is a continuation. In fact, the video was prior to this, about this fake technologies issue. And then I'm going to read some more recent stuff. Well, this first piece is called A Brochure on Featureless Science Fiction Poetics. Foretold in music, we were rendered undecided passengers. Music was merely a signal. We would be separated from matter. Every room is a glad member of United Rooms Incorporated. It is uneasy to explain what United Rooms is. United Rooms is not exactly a country. United Rooms is a chain citizenship, a company in the midst of nothingness, a brain exchange network without a center. Maybe the best way to understand what a room is to imagine yourself, the customer, without a material support, without a body, and without the five senses helping you through shopping. Understanding your psyche is just info floating in a buffer zone world. Inside the United Rooms, many deny the existence of United Rooms. Many are convinced United Rooms is just a fantasy. Those who accept being part of the United Rooms tell us that their United States of mind has as its purpose going beyond the traditional notion of state. In this sphere, new citizens unite through a common information market. Info comes and goes in this bodiless world. Rooms do not want to have a government. Thus, thanks to nanotechnology, every one of them is part of the government. There is not one ruler, but millions of them. Every one of them sends information to everybody else's new head. This is called the United Rooms Freedom Act. Every thought or action taken in United Rooms is subjected to surveys and can only be accomplished when the majority of members of United Rooms determines this is the right action, the right thought. United Rooms, by most part, is bipartisan. Even the sister system, a chain citizenship that competes or opposes the United Rooms, male-oriented mental genitalia, accepts they may constitute what was formerly known as a state or church. The difference being now, nobody needs to see anybody else. In United Rooms, each bro or cis lives in his or her own world, what is generally called a room of one's own. Rooms are what the body was replaced by. A room is only bothered by the external world in cases of extreme failure of what's called the signal. Every room is a port. Info gets in, info gets out, from and to every room. When the signal fails, the rooms disappear or quiver. The rooms fail to stay. Rooms are pure media. In a room, you cannot find yourself, except by way of somebody else's info on you. Panic happens. In certain stories gathered in rooms, rooms are sometimes described as social fantasy land. Nothing seen by the room is real. Everything rooms do is determined by the decisions of the majority of rooms. Rooms feel as most rooms do. This is sometimes also called democraciness. Welcome, rooms rule. Instead of neuro-waiting for the daily remote control orgasm the sister system sends you, ask for room service number 1. Poetry can be delivered directly to your mind. Combine it with e-drugs. Get together with just the best the archives can offer you. Choose the poem you most like. Most people use the song in your head service. The song in your head service is a collection of lyrics that sound intimately in your head while working in United Rooms world. Make you feel all right. These songs were ordered by you, were paid by instant capital. These songs can help your life have a great soundtrack. You do not need emotions if you order the song in your head service. Thanks to these songs, you can survive aesthetically. They can cheer you up. Songs that nobody else knows are sounding in your brain. Every other room has their own songs that go along. You are not that kind. You are different from regular rooms. You don't just use brain music. Your taste and demands are far superior. You are a room who chooses lines, quotes, paragraphs, comments on. These pieces sound in your mind every time you need them to substitute the world, the risk of returning or speech. TV or not TV, that used to be the question. We had some options. Depletion was one of them. Archive me not, he said. Fishing will rehappen. But we finally glimpsed the decision, limbo ourselves into replay. Remember, the service is always available. At the precise moment you want, the system can deliver a poem directly to your mind. Yes, anytime you decide. That poem can help you get through anything: the government, marriage, the people, sex, yourself. The poem will arrive instantly. Use the best performer you know or wanna try. Choose between dozens of tongues. Time is not an issue anymore. You're the context. All voices have been recorded. You can combine every one of them. Every language is at your disposal with just a minimal extra fee. The signal is not going to fail this time. Info will arrive okay. We assure you this: a failure, not gonna happen. Bring back Ara and make it faster. Technology can secure your poetic existence. Technology can put an infinite number of poems in your head, one after the other. The recordings make this possible. Make those moments deeper, more theoretical, more international, more obscure or clearer. Make them more literary, erratic. Make every moment in your life become experimental. Go for it. Don't live without the poems in your head. Electronic service, bigger brother, got it? Isn't the world much better now? Yes, the world is much better now. Much safer now. Room service number 2. Emotions are waiting to happen. Replace them with concepts. 810 passions according to Fourier. 810 hassles. 810 contradictions bothering you. Don't pay any attention to them. They are not a happy family. Ignore them. Attribute emotions to poesy from the corny past. Sentimental or confessional can provide a good attack, a good defense to our anesthesia. Ideas are safer. Instead of feeling, become totally intelligent. Just like me, you can be an emotional idiot, a confused human being, but a really notable thinker, even a genius or influential member of the reading circle. Receive some theories from our catalog. Hello, don't face reality. What is reality? There's no such thing as reality. Don't cling to Iraq. Prevent emotions from happening. They may retreat you to a primal state, like body or mother. But if your problem is you do not feel anything at all, what's up? Room service number 2 can also help you with this little problem. Poetry can be delivered to your room so you can feel. Use the service in the right moment to make it righter. Both of you can use it in the privacy of your non-mutuality. She can try it, and if you want, I can harakiri price. Order a language piece that is going to suit a moment of your existence which needs to be emotionally charged. The language piece can be delivered immediately and can change your entire mental experience. But if you do not feel anymore and still do not care, browse our theories. United Rooms is always in a situation of war. The most solicited form of literature there are anti-war poems. Language can make the world safer, though make sure your account can handle anti-war perf poem files. Check your room's profile to see if it fits anti-war department requirements. Order anti-war poems soon. Warning, demand is high and many simultaneous users of anti-war poems can result in a busy signal. Anti-war poems are even more popular than take-out haiku, concrete crap, not French avant-garde, freedom translation, rental death of the subject, vintage slam, deconstruction by numbers, post-language cheerleading, journal lining, and fish taco poetry. And if your need for instant safety is greater, just ask for deluxe service. Not only we can send anti-war poems to your head, but also dramatic 3D images of war happening. Choose your own battlefield, in which the performance of the poem magically or socially results in a successful and abrupt stop of rapes, bombings, and gunfights. Receive images of rooms mobilized in other rooms. Don't hesitate to hire our services. Join us. United Rooms is exactly what you need. Hide with us in a little make-believe hotel. See you soon. And don't forget it, war made us possible, the rooms. And finally, room service number 3. Yes, I want to order a father tongue. I want to get rid of all mother tongues. Happily surpass. Not even stepmother tongue. I fear flesh. I feel the urgency of a father tongue. Gestures make me bodily. What I need is room service number 3. A father tongue which can describe to me all tongues. A language one. Father tongue, you're my truly big bra. I should be like you and reach the Hubble point of view. The metalinguistic dream for me, for my room. I don't want to deal with my mother anymore. I only find her natural. Walmart can have her. I want to get as artificial as I can. So please, 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 install in me immediately the complete father tongue kit. And I think I'm gonna put the video right now. Okay.
Hi, my name is Target. I am a software program designed to help poetry return to the righteous path of the avant-garde. I am a software program in which you can write, and the machine can read for you, can read excellently. I have different voices, and I only weigh a few bytes. I have different oral personalities, one for every type of poet or lyrical voice. I am easy to use, and I have ideas on any issue, like Mexican art, and why I think America is a melting nuclear plant. Even though I am not as impressive as Baraka or Ed Sanders, I have something to offer. To prove my point, let me describe to you how I have helped my most faithful client. His name is Heriberto Yepez, a so-called experimental verbal artist and translator from a border town called Tijuana, the only American city ruled by the Mexican government. Heriberto started to use me when he became convinced he was never going to be a good reader. So, instead of using his body or voice, he decided to use computers to read for him and eventually to write his work. Heriberto's dream is to turn on his PC and go to sleep, leave a creative writing program running, and wake up in the next morning to print the novel or poetry book that the computer wrote for him. I think his dream is cool. I think his dream deserves to come true. Another reason why Heriberto decided to use me was to have no problems, none at all, speaking English. I have no accent, but Heriberto's is strong, and as everyone knows, having an accent in the US can be a problem, a huge one. So thanks to me, thanks to my great and merciful powers, Heriberto's voice now sounds like an American's, a white male voice. His voice is nearly perfect. Humans should worship a voice like that. A voice like that is better than God. Let me explain to you how I work. First, the so-called writer needs to prepare the piece in Spanish or any non-New World Order language, then needs to translate it to English. No need, of course, to know this language at all. She or he can use a translation software available in several places throughout the US and Mexico, mainly in chain stores or the internet. Translation is not an issue anymore. As you can see, globalization is solving old human problems. Translation is just a click away. If there are mistakes, meaning or syntax technical problems, just attribute them to the great Western tradition of experimentalism. Call it language writing. Or, if you want to appeal to a different American crowd, call it Chicano Spanglish. But if somebody from Mexico finds out you're communicating with the gringos, communicating with them using their own language, then quickly switch into Spanish.
Y entonces construye una poética que sostenga que estás atacando a los norteamericanos con sus propias armas, usando su tecnología, dándoles en su mera madre, usando su propio idioma malvado, perverso y maníaco, para cuestionar el poder que detentan, y del que abusan, y están a punto de destruir al mundo, antes de su suicidio. Holy smooth, cross cultural reaching out.
Hi, I am again the white guy. The use of my services should become global, especially in the third world. As a Mexican poet, living in an American age, you need to work in English. Haven't you paid attention to your own news? Mexicans are soon going to have classes, from a very young age, on using computers and speaking English. The next Octavio Paz is going to write, like, the New York Times. If in Mexico have already disappeared more than 60 languages, one more is just one less.
Hi, my name is Old Woman. Sometimes I am referred to as Gertrude Stein. I am Target's most popular voice. I am gonna explain to you why I think poets and regular people around the world should switch into English their handling of daily business and transactions. I am going to be brief and concise, straight to the point, like any American granny would do. Even though this is not my normal style, my Gertrude way of doing things, I think, yes, I think you must change, yes. Why? Just because Americans rule the world, Americans rule the whore, rule. Americans rule the world, Why do they rule the worm, Why do Americans rule? Why they rule the world, Americans rule their world, they rule their world, they rule the whore, the word, the worm, Americans rule the world. That's why.
And to finish this marvelous talk, let me tell you one last thing. Every voice is apocryphal, all voices are software. It could well be that you are a machine, like me. That, of course, wouldn't be bad. On the contrary, it would be more than okay. More than okay. So, this is the end. Enjoy it.
I had a lot of fun doing that. Well, I'm going to move on. This book was supposed to be ready by now. It's part of a set of 5 books, and apparently one or two of the other authors didn't get the material ready, so it's going to be published until January or February, something like that. It's called Periods, Threesomes, Drafts, and Mothers. I always get to discover my mothers in bad trips. I'm a prostitute, and my first mother was a prostitute too. Her name is Veronica. She was raped when she was young. She was used all the time. She was raped like every woman in my family for as long as we can remember. Still, my family, an unforgettable valley. Her name is Rape Again and Again. Her name is Tonight. I'm a man, and that's the only reason I wasn't raped. I was supposed to be the rapist, like my older brother, and every man in my family for as long as we can remember. Becoming a rapist is called, at least in my family, loyalty. Our memory doesn't want to remember, we are the ones that forget. I didn't become a rapist because I decided I would become a prostitute. I was weak. I became a man. This is the book on how a character cannot be one. This is a little book on how a man is nothing. Never a character, a single person, an unidentifiable being. He cannot be he. He always needs to divide. He doesn't accept giving himself to a woman or to a book. My mother became a whore at 16. One night, my grandmother notified her, and notify is the word my mother uses to tell the story. A man notified her, my grandma, that she needed to give her daughter to him so he could fuck her because she was nothing. It was one of those places where a woman is worthless. It was no place in particular, no place at all. Mexico, like the United States, is full of these places like this. And the man told my grandmother either she gave up nothing to him or he was going to fuck nothing anyway. So my grandmother told nothing, she either was going to get fucked or she was going to get fucked. So fucked up, left Colima and went to work as a waitress, a whore in Guadalajara. From Guadalajara, she went to Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, Sonora, and ended up, of course, in Tijuana. She was a whore all over the country of maize. Mexico is great. Then she crossed to the States, a whore there too. Then there she met my father, a Mexican man working in the fields. He was an alcoholic, and out of loyalty, I became an alcoholic too, even though I never got to know him. He just fucked my mother for a few months and suddenly left for Mexico again. Meanwhile, he raped my older sisters. She became a waitress again. She became her own fortress again. She met a man again. The man raped her. Only this time, the rape was mind rape. He never believed my mother had stopped being a whore. 20 years passed, and he was convinced my mother was going to be a whore all her life. That's why he never left his wife. We were, as they say in Mexico, su casa chica. My mother was an alcoholic. My mother had no true house. She lived in the mind of my stepfather. I never knew my mother. I only knew his mind, his words. Every time I think of my mom, I hear the voice of my stepfather defining her either as a whore or as a nothing. Encueratriz, he said. That's why I'm obsessed with the mind of man. English brings me to mother. English brings me to poverty and beginnings. When my mother came to North, some people laughed at the way she talked. Some people from rural areas in the South talk like birds, she says. So people laugh when she talked. The guy at the store where she bought bread and milk to eat before going to work simply laughed at that bird girl from the South. People from the North, are very ironic. They don't believe in identity. I hear my mom all the time in my head, finding a boy somewhere in the woods, a boy saying names, the voice of a bird woman. And the voice wasn't calling her son or lovers. She was just saying names, and the names didn't belong to anybody. There were only sounds coming out of her mouth, eating bread, drinking milk. No sons or lovers yet, only a young woman saying names, most of them male names. And the air in the room got filled with empty names before she left for work, dancing for them. The first place she lived in when she came to the city was a motel downtown. I've been in that motel 2 or 3 times. The motel has long stairs, really long ones. When you go up, the place even feels bigger than it really is. So you go to the AM/PM on the corner, and you return to the motel, stop at the facade, you look at it, and the place is just not that big. You go inside anyway, and while you're using the stairs, there's no way you are not going to decide this is a very freaky place, the kind of place where you belong. And you start to wonder if this is the motel where your mother lived 30 years ago, or your mother's womb, and you're still in it. And the supervisor working there is probably the same guy that knew my mom. He simply had to notice her when she lived here. She was so beautiful. She was the most beautiful bird in the city. Her eyes and wings were so beautiful, no human could see her. All of them saw her in the form of a woman. That year, somebody took a picture of her, a picture all about her legs. He's probably the same guy. I bet he has no idea I'm the son of that woman. I'm sure if I mentioned something about this, the same joke would appear in the mind of both of us. A poor joke about his being my dad, but maybe he's not the same man. But I'm sure if I asked that fat old guy how many years he's been working here and explained to him why am I asking that kind of question, even if he weren't that guy looking at my mother on her way to the stairs, the joke would still appear in his mind and mine, because you have to build a relationship with unreality. And the best way is through jokes. Jokes that both create a distance and fill space. Jokes made in order for us not to notice how empty the whole situation really is. My father and I used jokes. She used names. South has old secrets. Secrets don't mean truth or truths. Secrets mean somebody knows more about you than you. Secrets mean even others know what eye doesn't have an eye for. Secrets are more important than truths. Secrets are eyes that don't belong to you, eyes that see more, eyes that laugh. If the animal mouth were to open to its complete circumference, it would turn into a third eye. Tongue would transform into a new sight. South has all eyes. We're going to the south. North is just one. In Mexico, we all know south is wiser. North is pragmatic. North pays. South is dying. You look into the south to understand. You look into the north to see where are we headed. Straight into a wall. And behind it, a petrified nuclear mushroom. A monument to the Marines, those living inside mom water. Those trying to get out of the uterus using daddy technology. Mexico is the United States' hermeneutical past. Canada, its lame future. I was going to the south to see, but I didn't want to see what I was pre-seeing. I was pre-seeing Emily and another man. So I was going to the south to hide from that scene. Every time I was a second away from seeing the two of them, I disappeared. There were moments I didn't exist. I stopped living in linear time. I did it through confusion and pain. I didn't see anything, and that's the final function of sound. While disappearing, exactly when you're ready to see, north reappears. I realized war was not taking place. War meant images taking place in my head. War was the way I was destroying her. And I was projecting all those images on a place called the Middle East. The Middle East is a symbol of the memory we need to attack brutally. A mysterious place where women do not show their eyes, so you don't jump into them. I was destroying her vagina. I was destroying her tits. I was a cancer, and the cancer spread. Other people had similar images to replace their life with spectacular happenings. Everybody seemed to have an idea about this plot to replace their lives with supposed images of a supposed war in the Middle East. No war was really happening. Hegel says space is a negative possibility of there. The point, he says, is the negation of space taking place in space itself. A point fills space, suppressing it, leaving less and less space with the appearance of more and more points, points which become lines. Space is being eaten away through points, like an intellectual novel killing characters' lives through frequent remarks. And like Hegel's point, suppressing space, every image of the supposed war in the Middle East was covering up a real life, piece by piece. And where the image of her real face was now was Saddam's. President Bush was part of the puzzle too, another provisional puzzle we were obsessed with in order to cover up what's below the puzzle. And with every piece of the puzzle falling into place, less and less. There was an underground war taking place. It is the war to destroy both. You call that language? I call it hate com. In every couple, there's a United States and there's an Iraq. United States is the so-called victimizer, the master that ejects violence, the psych ops, the war words, the troops he sends, the kids. And then, on the other side, the so-called victim, the so-called poor little you, the one that doesn't deserve the treatment you're getting, your bad luck, the you know who, Iraq, one and the same, the whole circle of dual lies. The she doesn't get it. The United States invades, wants to dominate, while Iraq plays dead. The United States goes blind. Iraq plays innocent victim. United States uses images. Iraq plays silently. Iraq sabotages the master's plan. Iraq denies any involvement. The United States game is justice. Couple is combat. I was the United States. That's why I have been obsessed with it, because the United States is our allegory, as are Iraq, Mexico, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, Panama, or Vietnam. And the Jews going from extermination camps to becoming the Nazis of the Middle East, from victims to victimizers, thanks to a Holocaust. You see those missiles hitting their targets? That's the way you launch, the way you behave, so-called brother. That's the way you exist, so-called sister. Those explosions, the effects your words have, your actions on others. See those tanks, the artillery, the planes? That's the way your career advances. Yeah, that's the way your career advances. That's the way your day-to-day works. You see those Marines? That's your scared genitals. You see those victims? That's the way you play with the media. Bush was Iraq. Iraq will be Bush. But don't worry, not in your lifetime. You're going to be happy someday. Not in your lifetime, but happy someday when you're part of his, her memory info. Your life will be replayed infinite times in the form of a micro Hollywood movie. Then you will be happy, don't worry. Why am I telling you the truth? Because you don't deserve anything at all. You're trash. You are only what I desire and nothing more. You belong to me. You keep listening to me. You keep wondering. Thanks to me, you feel powerless. Thanks to me, you don't reveal you're destroying yourself and me too. You are here on earth only to pay tribute to my images, my words, and my ideas. The United States never prevails. In every case, the United States fails. Iraq's sole mission in life is not to win, but Iraq will always defeat you. He, she has his, her own tactics. The United States in every couple ends up going mad. All our roads head to insanity. All our roads lead to love. And love is what you now call war. And finally, I always wanted to turn into my father, but every time I tried, I became a woman. Father was a distance, a flat horizon. He didn't reject me. He didn't even know me. When I was a child, I was tired. I remained asleep most of the time. I wanted to see my father. I lost him at 3. From then on, my relationships always last 3 years. And then I'm gone. I need to split, like he did. This is not about psychology. This is about time and how flesh remembers. Patterns which compose our silence. Emotions are demons. The region of the demotional is me. Emotions gather. Emotion gather in it a story. Emotions are how stories move from one point to the next. Emotions are motors and waves. Every point of the body has a trapped story. If you touch the point, the story explodes. Emotions fold stories. The emotional is how an emotion is charged in the form of a story. Emotions are not concepts, but abstracted stories. If you touch emotions, you touch dead stories, the emotions. When I was a kid, I touched my body looking for the story of my father. Somehow, I knew the story was stored someplace near my hands. So I touched every centimeter of my hands to release the story, to see him again. I released thousands of them. One of my books was born this way, listening to the stories, looking for the story of my father someplace along the surface of my body. But I could never find it. I guess I lost the cells that stored my father. Where are you, Father? I have constructed songs for you, Father, songs of denial of bodies. I am someplace near you, I think. I can listen to you from here. Where are you? I don't see you. I don't see you either. But we are close, real close. I can hear your words, and I can hear yours. So, where are you? I'm in San Diego. What are you doing there? I'm working. Doing what? I don't want to tell you. I work for Americans. I feel humiliated by that. Don't exaggerate. Father, let's not discuss Americans now. And where are you, son? I'm walking to take a bus. Where are you going? Don't know exactly where I'm heading. I guess I'm heading south. But I can hear you from here. Don't know how, but I'm happy. I looked for years for you. I finally found you. So you were immediate to me. You were my skin. I have always been here in the States. I couldn't return to Mexico. It was not my home anymore. It didn't feel right. I had demons inside. I returned to this place. I think it was about money. or about memories. I had no memories of the States. All my memories were memories of South. North is about forgetting, eventually going blank. But where did you look for me, son? I looked for you in my hands. Wrong place to seek out your father. Did you look on your soul? On my what? Your soul. I understand now. We're not talking because I'm walking. The ground is pressing a certain point of my soul where you are located. Father, are you dead or alive? Don't know, son. I know I'm working, and that's that. So all these years you've been hiding in my soul? Yes. And my head is crushed every time you step on me. You don't want to know what you've been doing with me, son. I know. You don't want to realize every step you take is taken on my face. I kinda like it. I too destroyed my dad. Tell me more about you. What are you doing now? What kind of job do you have? I don't have a job now. I'm taking a break from life in general. I think I'm going to snap any moment now. We used to be stronger. Now we're weak. Men like us never snap. But now we're fragile. Some woman, right? Yes, what else, Dad? I learned that from you, I guess. Using stories about women to snap really quick, get away from life. What's her name, boy? Her name is Emily or Emilia. Neither of them is profound. American? Mexican? Mexican, kinda. Kinda? Whoa! Does your mother know? Don't want to talk about mother, Dad. Is she still a whore or what? Dad, I don't want to talk about mom. If you keep asking, I'm leaving. Okay, but tell me more about your girlfriend, your ex. I don't want to talk about her either. I think she and me and my mother are basically the same person. That's crap, son. Women are not even themselves. There's no way one woman can be the same as another. Women kill each other. I now see where I got my ideas on women. I got them from you. Let's skip the subject, Dad. Tell me about your brother. Haven't heard from him. Father, I think we better end this conversation. I just want to consult you on something. I never got to learn anything meaningful from you. So this is your opportunity to teach me, to help me with your best advice. Lately, I've been circling a single event. My life has become a series of loops around a single event. Is there a way, Dad? Is there a way to end a life that has become nothing more than loops? Son, I will respond to you simply by saying this. I didn't even know life wasn't supposed to loop. Bye, Dad. Bye, son. One last thing, Dad. What? Every time I want to turn into you, I walk a straight line. I think it has to do with my complex issues, like linear time. But to say it bluntly, when I try to become you, I end up taking a step back. I think I'm going back to the hole, back to Mom. Dad, I think this time the United States might win. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Heriberto Yepez? Any comments? Yes.
I have a question, not specifically about the presentation, but I was reading your book, Tijuana, and I mean it pertains to everything that was in the presentation. I'm just curious in your idea of your rejection or your critique of Hegel and the idea that hybridity es un engaño, the myth of the escritor fronterizo, that all, I mean, that's all I'm hearing. I'm just curious, how do you view Chicano poetics, Chicano poetry, Chicano poetics, and their use of hybridity? Do you view that also as postmodernism? I mean, do you have I don't know if you have a view on it. I don't know because it wasn't in here, so I'm just curious.
The question is asking about the challenge to Hegelian dialectics and to notions of frontera hybridity with respect to the poetics and the poetry, right?
Do you view Chicano poetics as Hegelian, is basically?
Yeah, the question is Chicano poetics Hegelian, basically?
Well, my discussion about Hegelian dialectics is about how the border, or not only the border, but postmodernism, Mexican contemporary literature, even American literature, is seen as a synthesis of supposed pair of polar forces, and how fusion is not a way to represent adequately what is really happening in those kind of writings or in culture in general. I prefer to use fission as a method to write, which means basically to make every sentence become 2 or 3 more sentences, destroying every, dividing, not uniting, as it is portrayed in postmodernism theory, that what is happening in literature is fusion, hybridity, and that's not, I think, from Stein to the present, fusion, I don't think it resembles what is happening on the page. So I prefer like images like fission, and other ones like fake Aleph by Borges, and a lot of them. To look for more metaphors on how to understand what's happening in culture, because I think hybridity is like trying to have like a Cold War, like a fake peace, like 2 polar forces united, and that's the Cold War. That's peace, and that's not real. In Chicanos or in Mexicans or in I think Black Americans, both worlds are not even 2, are a lot of worlds. And I don't think in any identity there's a way to make a synthesis of all those components. The Raramuri Indians defined the human being as not having one soul, but having a lot of souls, and those souls were fighting, having a war between them. So there was no synthesis possible in humans, according to them.
Other questions or comments? Yes.
In the last comment you read, it seemed like you're making a synthesis, perhaps, between psychology and flesh and those things in terms of, or in context with time and patterns being related, and that being circular. I just wondered if you might elaborate a little bit more on that idea.
Okay. I've been discovering that in families, families are artificial structures. They are not like natural or something like that. But the way the members of this system live or behave or experience life, because it becomes a system, because it becomes an artificial, and it's really not a system. It's a fake system, because there's no possibility of really building a system. So, but some of the experiences of one member of this so-called system influence the others. So a pattern appears, and our movements try to get away from that pattern sometimes, or dissipate it, and then another pattern builds. So in writing these pieces, I try to capture that movement of a system influencing its members, and how they destroy the system, because the main point is that the system is not possible. And every time we try to build a system like the United States, even in its name, Mexico is also the United States of Mexico, United States, you know? It's just a fantasy. There's no way of uniting states. There's no way. So, but every time we try, we destroy ourselves.
There also seemed to be something connected with that in your poem that I was getting a sense of that maybe a parent or a family member's psychology is within the flesh of their children or family.
Yeah. No, and that's a real. I believe that's a real fact that stories are trapped in you. That's why poetry works. For example, poetry is vibration basically, and then the vibration gets into your body because it's not only here but all through the body. And then if the vibrations go exactly to certain points, an emotion happens. But emotions are basically a story. There's no pure emotion. Emotions are always a demon, a demotion. So poetry is like, and not only poetry, but movies and representation in general, wake up those stories, those demotions throughout our body. And that's how language basically works, I think.
Any other comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm from Tijuana. I grew up there 10 years. I'm very worried about the situation right now. And every time I go back, the distance between what we, as young people, we believe and from what we believe and what we try to achieve in the country, where it's too large. It's just. I hear all these conversations. I went to Baja California, so it was very political school, high school. And we have all these political conversations, but they would surmount up to nothing. Like, nobody would move or do anything, and everybody ended up in nightclubs instead of, political meetings. I guess. So what do you think is the role of the youth in Mexico right now, where there hasn't been a lot of movements to change the situation, and there is belief and there is a lot of political talk and a lot of anger and desperation, but nothing really moves away from that. And it appears like a lot of people just get lost in commercial stuff and television and I don't know why that was instead of facing reality. What do you think can be done in this respect in terms of what can art and poetry do to change that?
Well, youth is a big myth. If you see what's happening in Mexico, some forces that are doing something are not primarily from the young generations, for example, but by older campesinos in the south. So this myth about youth changing the world is a 20th century myth. Yeah. And what can somebody do? I don't know. I mean, about what? I think like we start to talk about change outside there. I want to change the government. I want to overthrow the American government. But then why don't we first overthrow the American government over here? Because we are America. We are Bush. We are Fox. So when you start when I start, I'm not talking about you, but in general, when I start to talk about how I can change, blah 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 blah, that's the whole way to continue destroying the world.
That's not what I mean. That it's not something it's not like you can do 1968 revolutions. It's definitely not like that. It's never like that probably. But I'm thinking about mentality-wise. How do you change that mentality of people? How do you, especially in a city like this,
but forget about other people. I mean, first you change yourself, and not even change, because if you change yourself, that means you don't accept yourself. That's the whole problem. You don't accept yourself, so you buy things, blah 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 blah. So even the word change is I mean, it's part of the whole problem, you know. And first, if you accept yourself, after those long decades of achieving that, then maybe you start to think about changing other people, you know.
But you're not changing other people, you're changing yourself.
Yeah, that's the whole. I think that's the whole. I discovered that when I try to change the world, nothing happens. I introduce more violence, because maybe Bush doesn't want to change. Maybe he's happy that way. I'm sure Bush is really happy with his own life. He has power, you know? So why try to change somebody who's happy?
One last question. Yes.
First, thank you very much. I'm just wondering, considering the many ways in which you yourself put poetry into the world and find it already existing in the world, speaking about poetry that's written in crisis, what do you think is the capacity of written poetry, specifically lyric poetry versus contemporary movement towards prose poetry? What do you think that has in achieving the same sort of dialogue with an audience that your work is capable of?
What a question. I think lyric poetry, as I think a lot of people know, is too much related to a notion of I, of self, which is really, I mean, really poor. It's a Western notion, basically modern notion. So what do we understand by the lyrical? If by the lyrical we mean music that arouses images or emotions, well, I guess prose can be lyrical. I guess music, even no words, can be lyrical. I mean, something that has no words. But if by lyrical we understand something that centers around self, I think that notion is really dead. Because we're basically others. We're basically otherness. The Western tradition doesn't want to accept what it deeply knows, that the Western is not the Westerner. But and I think in that way, trying to use the lyrical to suppress the consciousness that otherness is true reality would be really a crime, you know. I think the lyrical means much more than self. And in that way, understanding the lyrical in that way, nothing has happened to the lyrical. There's no crisis in the lyrical.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we will have the grand drawing to see who gets the free book. All right. Take off my glasses, pardon the glasses, so I can't see. And the winner is Johnny Hernandez, who went out the door, but he's in my class, so I'll get his book and give it to him next week. So thank you, Dimiter. Thank you very much, Heriberto.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you.